Another loaded show coming your way on today's Philadelphia 76ers Now, and here is the rundown. Does Philadelphia have competition for Kyle Lowry in NBA free agency? Could Philadelphia reunite with Landry Shamet? And should the Sixers sign this veteran forward here to my right? First, this is today's poll question. Are the Sixers and Daryl Morey the biggest winners of free agency up to this point? If yes, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon like the video. If not, I want you to explain your reasoning and comment why. Let's start off with the latest around Kyle Lowry here. Competition for his services in NBA free agency between two veteran playoff caliber teams in Philadelphia as well as the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns reportedly trying to sign him away from Philadelphia. It's easy to see why. Kyle Lowry is battle-tested, very mentally and physically tough, I should say. He could still really score at all three levels, is a good distributor, and he has positional versatility with his ability to play on-ball and off-ball. He was very comfortable playing off-ball in the lineups and the time that he shared alongside Tyrese Maxey. And Kyle Lowry makes a lot of sense for Phoenix when you think about how their roster is constructed now and how that team was built last year. They did not have a true point guard, and because of that, they didn't have a point guard to initiate the offense, to pressure the rim, but to put everybody else in a position where they felt comfortable and they could succeed. You look at Kevin Durant's numbers, he put up numbers. Devin Booker had another really good statistical season. Bradley Beal did struggle a little bit. He was playing out of position, and sometimes he was playing point guard, a role that he had never assumed throughout his entire NBA career. So Phoenix needs true point guard play. Roster is very thin outside of KD, Booker, and Beal, and that's why Kyle Lowry going there and a guy who can kind of calm things down during the game, but also leadership-wise, character-wise. That's why I think that Phoenix would be a good next stop and destination in Lowry's career. Look at this tweet here. The Suns still working on re-signing Josh Okogie. Few teams want him, but Phoenix is confident they'll be able to keep him. Kyle Lowry still in play, and the two sides are still talking, but he may wind up back in Philadelphia. This is why I think Kyle Lowry returning to the Philadelphia 76ers makes sense. The Sixers would be very smart to bring Kyle Lowry back in NBA free agency. He's comfortable playing on ball if he needs to run point, and the Sixers could use a backup point guard, even though I think Jared McCain can take over that role. But Kyle Lowry is also comfortable playing off ball. And we saw last year in 23 games played with Philadelphia that Nick Nurse was very comfortable with having Kyle Lowry in the lineup. He shot 40% from three. He can defend at a higher rate. He's an extension of the coach on the floor. And I think that veteran presence in running the offense off the bench would be valuable for Philadelphia. So I would really like him as a depth piece who can really impact the Sixers team on both ends of the floor. And lastly, he's got to be affordable. As we know, Philadelphia is pretty cash-strapped. You look at Kyle Lowry's numbers last year, and I thought he fared very well. Coming back to his hometown in Philadelphia, 8 points per game, 4.5 dimes, 44% from the floor, and as I just noted, 40+% from three. He is capable of putting those numbers up once again, and Chip, as we saw, the Sixers pretty much let go of Patrick Beverley, who was a zero offensively but very good defensively, to bring in Lowry, who maybe not as good of a defensive player, but a much better offensive player. What do you think about him maybe coming back and the Suns being interested?
Yeah, look, regardless of whether or not you think Jared McCain can sort of take over that backup point guard role, which he's looked very good so far in Summer League, I still think bringing back Kyle Lowry makes a ton of sense. You know, you need to fill these roster spots anyway, so bring back a guy who I thought played it very well. I've seen some people in the comments regarding Kyle Lowry say, don't want him back, he wasn't good. Look, he was very steady and a very solid contributor for the Sixers down the stretch and in that postseason run. Like, he's always going to make the right play. Again, shot 40% from three, so he's an efficient player. He's a smart player. And even if he doesn't play for you, which I think he still is good enough to be in the rotation, he can be a great mentor to somebody like a Jared McCain, along with all the other players on the Sixers roster. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Minimum contract, Let him end his career here in Philadelphia. Don't make him go to Phoenix, Daryl Morey, sign him to that minimum. I think he'll be fine taking that at this point of his career. Is he what he once was? Obviously not, but a good veteran option. No reason not to bring him back.
Yeah, I thought he was fine in that Sixers playoff rotation against the Knicks. Could we see a Sixers reunion? Landry Shamet, waived by the Washington Wizards. Since coming into the league, he's done one thing very, very well. That shoot the three ball. And I think that Philadelphia could fortify their bench unit with another three-point shooter on top of Eric Gordon. And Landry Shamet, I think he could excel in that role. Michael Scotto with this tweet, Landry Shamet has cleared waivers, so now he's an unrestricted free agent. Shamet has shot 38.4% from three in his career and has several interested suitors. He was a part of that Tobias Harris trade back several years ago, and the Philadelphia 76ers brought in Harris, and Landry Shamet was part of the package that they sent away. I thought as a rookie out of Wichita State, he played well for Brett Brown and the Sixers, and I thought that he was on his way to having a really solid career, and he's had a solid career, maybe not as well as he played as I thought that he was, on the path to becoming when he started off his career with the Sixers, and 54 games played that year with Philadelphia, 20 and a half minutes per game as a rookie, 8.3 points per game, 44%, and 40% from three-point range. Those numbers will suffice for sure, and he's still capable of doing that. And on this Sixers team, you're going to be able to get a lot of open looks around the three-point perimeter just because of the offensive firepower that Philadelphia now has on this team. He's jumped around the league, but does remain a reliable three-point shooter, part of the reason why he's played with several teams since Philly. Not a great defender, so outside of shooting, what are his strengths? Not a ton of them. Take a look at what he's done over the last 4 years. Again, one thing has remained consistent, and that's the three-point ball. 38.7% 4 years ago, 36.8% after that, 37.7%. This past year, I think this is a big reason why the Wizards let him go, why his market has cooled a little bit, why he hasn't had more suitors. 33.8% from three on 3.4 attempts. And with Washington last year, worst team in the NBA, in my opinion. And he still didn't have that many three-point attempts, wasn't seeing the floor all that much, and only played in those 46 games. Sixers brought in, Eric Gordon. Do you bring back Landry Shamet, or does that clash here for Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think you could still bring him in just to have a body off the bench in certain situations and to protect for injury concerns here. I don't think Shamet would crack the rotation, even during the regular season, much less in the playoffs. Obviously, that defense is a big concern, and had a down year, but playing for that Wizards team, tough to really put up spectacular numbers when everybody around him is so, inefficient and ineffective at creating open looks for Shamet, because that's what he needs, is players who can create open looks for him. He's not going to create open looks for himself, and certainly he would get a lot of open looks in the Sixers team. So I think he'd be more of like a backup option in case Eric Gordon coming off the bench either isn't as effective as you had hoped, or he gets injured at some point during the year. You need someone to play spot minutes, someone to come off the bench, hit a few threes. So, look, again, he'd be probably available for a minimum contract at this point in his career after bouncing around. So, why not bring him back to Philadelphia?
From one three-point shooter to another three-point shooter. Davis Bertans, the veteran forward, waived by the Charlotte Hornets earlier this week. The kid from Latvia, who's not really much of a kid anymore, but a couple of years ago, he got a pretty fat bag, and it ended up being a huge overpay. And since then, Davis Bertans has really, really struggled to get consistent minutes and have a consistent role at the NBA level. When the Sixers played the Washington Wizards a few years ago in the playoffs, he was looked at as the three-point marksman for Washington. Since then, though, he's just really struggled. You thought maybe if he went to the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, he was going to get a lot of three-point looks, couldn't really crack the rotation on a consistent basis. He did knock down 39% of his threes, but not a good defender either. So with Shamet and Bertans a little bit bigger, both of those players can't really help you out on the defensive end. They're more so offensive specialists. Last year, Bertans, between OKC and Charlotte, did connect on 38% of his threes. You look at those numbers back in 2021, 2022, this was when he was making some decent coin. 33.5% from three. Not ideal, but the season before that with Washington, 39.5% from three-point range. In 2022-2023 with Dallas, some in-depth shooting numbers here from the left corner, 65%. Weirdly enough, from the right corner, 28.6%. Above the break, 35.8%. And then in 2023-2024, cooled from the left corner, 32%. Right corner, he was better at 42.1%. And then above the break, 38.8%. Just weird inconsistencies in his three-point stroke. And then the catch and shoot three-point percentage, certainly up and down here. And he earned that contract because at the bottom of your screen, you see 43.1%, 40.8%, but then 33.3, 38.6, and 39.3. Clearly, him being under that 40% number, but if it's in that upper 30 percentile, that could play at the NBA level. But Chip, when you talk about Shamet and when you talk about Bertans is 6'10". You wish that he could defend because he'd be able to give Philadelphia or another team a lot more minutes, but on that end of the floor, he's kind of a traffic cone.
Yeah, he is. Shamet's not a good defender. Davis Bertans is a revolving door on the defensive end of the floor. He's not going to give you anything in terms of rebounding, defending, rim protection, perimeter defense. He's not going to do any of it. He has one job, and that's to shoot. And even that job, he's less consistent than he used to be. Back in 2019, 2020, when he got paid, he was at least a reliable three-point shooter, and he could get hot and make 4, 5, 6 threes in a game. I mean, we've seen it happen before, but these past couple of years, it's really fallen off. He's been a lot more inconsistent. Games where, he'll go 2 of 8 from 3, no longer having those stretches where he gets hot, and he's getting older, and the defense is getting even worse than it used to be, which was already bad. So I'm a little more out on Bertans. I'd rather have someone like Shamet, who at least we've seen more recently have better play, where it's been a few years since we've seen Bertans really be consistent enough. Even when he was shooting, 38% from 3 a couple of years ago, he does tend to be rather streaky. And again, if you're going to have someone taking up that 4 spot on the court, and you're going to make him, defend 4s and 3s and be near the rim at times, it's just not a great fit there, in my opinion, with Bertans. There's other options that I think can do, honestly, similar to what he does on offense and hit some 3s and then play better defense with more toughness. So Bertans a little bit out on, but Shamet, I could be convinced.
And you could get them on the vet men. And that really, at this point, given the cash that the Sixers have spent, the only players that the Sixers can really target at this juncture, week 2, NBA free agency and moving forward. Before we hop on out, fill in the blank. Sixers are the blank best team in the East. Are they better than Boston? Are they better than New York? Milwaukee? Let us know down in the comment section. I think they're right in that upper tier. Can't put them ahead of Boston. I think you could say they're more talented than New York, but I want to see how both teams look with a couple of massive additions on those teams, excuse me. If you enjoyed today's show, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and be sure to subscribe to us here on 76ers. Now, giving you some great content here, best stretch in the history of the channel. Let's keep it humming.